Hey everyone, it's John with KGTropicals.com. It's Tuesday, September 10th, 2013. A sad day in the DC metropolitan area after what happened in that football game last night. But we're not here to talk about that. Welcome to this edition of Tank Talk. I got a favor to ask you, and then we're going to move on to a really good topic of the day. Now, I know the last time I asked for a favor, things got a little nasty. I promise you that's not going to happen this time. It involves the comments on these videos. Now, I am all in for a good debate. I have no problem with that. I have no problem if you have negative things to say, if you disagree with me, if you think I'm flat wrong, that's fine. But I would ask you, let's please just act like adults and not use foul language in these comments. I have a lot of young people that watch these videos, and you might talk that way at your house, but I don't talk that way at mine. So let's keep it G-rated. Let's all act like adults, and we can get some good debate going on here. I don't have a problem with negative comments, but when you use that bad language, dropping F-bombs and all of this other stuff, come on. I'm going to delete the comment. I'm going to probably yell at you first, but then I'm going to delete the comment so that the young people that watch these videos don't have to see that. They get enough of that everywhere else, so they're not going to get it here. So, all right, it's time to talk about setting up a new African cichlid tank. So let's move on. There's a lot of opinions out there about setting up an African cichlid tank. What is the right way and what is the wrong way to do it? Let's talk a little bit about the ideas that people have. I'll tell you what my preference is, and then we'll move on from there. Now, what a lot of people say is, I want to create as natural an environment as possible for these fish. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. But you're still raising these fish in a glass box. That's all I'm going to say about that. So to me, my opinion on decorating an African cichlid tank, or any aquarium for that matter, it's all a matter of preference. It's what you like. I don't want to get all nerdy here, but it is your opportunity to express yourself and to do what makes you happy. But we're going to talk about the things that these fish need, because African cichlids, different types, are going to have different needs in the aquarium, and we're going to talk about those different things. But when it comes to setting up an aquarium, my opinion is do it the way you like it. We don't all like the same things. You're going to watch all these videos on YouTube and you're going to see a bunch of different things out there, and you're going to find something that you like. Do that. But let's make sure the fish are going to be okay in that environment. So what are those environments? Let's talk about it. Alright, so this video is being made assuming that you've already made your decision as far as what type of African cichlids you're going to keep. I'm going to do another video in the next couple of weeks talking about selecting the right fish. Maybe I should have done that before I did this one, but anyway, I'm going to assume you've already made the decision of what kind of African cichlids you're going to keep. Whether they be Mbunas, peacocks and haps, Tanganyikans, Victorians, whatever it is, I'm assuming you've already decided that, and so we're going to talk about the different things that these fish require when you're going to set up your tank. Now, when I say require, it's not really a matter of life or death, but with some of them, it can have a lot to do with their happiness overall while they're in your tank. So we do want to keep these things in mind. Now, let's break them down and go by different groups. We're going to start out talking about Mbunas. Now, first of all, a lot of people say that word differently. Some people say Mbuna, Mbuna. I say Mbuna. Who knows who's right? It doesn't really matter. You know what I'm talking about. And the word Mbuna, or Mbuna, means rock dwellers. So, knowing that, if you're going to set up your aquarium for Mbunas, make sure they have plenty of rocks. Make sure they have plenty of hiding places. The reason for it, instinctively, these fish are going to hang around the rocks. They're going to go into the little crevices. They're going to find these little nooks, and that's what they're going to make their home, which is one of the big complaints about Mbunas, is that they do hide a lot. So you want to make sure you give them plenty of places to hide. You can stack up slate. You can put different rock formations. Texas Holy Rock is one of my favorite looks when it comes to an African cichlid tank. Great for Mbunas because they have all these little nooks and crannies that they can go into and hide. So keep that in mind when you're putting up your Mbuna tank. Now, another thing to keep in mind is the size of the aquarium. Now, I've talked in different videos about different size aquariums for different fish. Breeding and keeping are two completely different things. So if you're setting up an Mbuna tank, let's give them the right size. Let's give them plenty of room. Let's talk about a bare minimum of a 55-gallon tank. They're cheap, they're readily available. If you can't afford a brand new one, go on Craigslist. They're there, a dime a dozen. A 55-gallon tank will go a long way. Your fish will be a lot happier, and it'll just be an easier environment for them if you start out with a tank that size. 75, even better. Bigger than that, even better. But let's start out with a minimum of 55. So in Mbuna tanks, plenty of rocks for them to hide in, and give them at least 55 to 75 gallons or bigger. Now, moving on to peacocks and haps, they are different than Mbunas. They are more of a free swimming fish. They like plenty of room. Should you not put hiding places and rocks and caves and things like that? That's not what I'm saying. You can absolutely do that, but it's not as critical in a peacock and hap tank. Now, my personal opinion, when you give peacocks and haps big areas that they can hide in or make their territory, it gives them something to fight over. So think about that. So I'm not saying that your peacock and hap tank should be barren. Some people like that look. I'm one of those people, especially in a discus tank. But we're not talking about those. We're talking about Africans. Some people like the barren tank look, and in a peacock and hap tank, that'll be perfectly fine, but not necessarily in an Mbuna tank. So giving them spaces to hide gives them spaces to fight over. So keep that in mind. But when it comes to peacocks and haps, having the majority of the tank be wide open for them to free swim is going to be your best bet. Now, one of the things you have to think about, not as much with peacocks, because peacocks don't get huge, some of your haps get massive. So when we're talking about the size aquarium, again, I'm going to say bare minimum 55 to 75, but with peacocks and haps, the bigger the better. With all these fish, the bigger the better. So keep that in mind. If somebody came to me and said, hey, I got $1,000, I want to set up an African cichlid tank, what should it be? I would steer them in the direction of a 125-gallon tank. Not telling you that 125 costs $1,000, but what I'm telling you is by the time you get the tank and you get the stand and maybe you want a canopy, a filtration system big enough to support African cichlids, you can spend quite a bit of money. Or you can go on Craigslist and buy a whole complete setup for 150 bucks, who knows? But go big. Because if you go big with your peacocks and haps, your haps are going to reach their full potential, they're going to get huge, and they're going to be much happier. So, let's change lakes. Alright, so when we talk about setting up for fish from other lakes, what we want to do is implement the same plans that we do with Malawis. Now here's what I mean. If you're going to put some Tanganyikans in your African cichlid tank, maybe you like a couple of different types of Tropheus, maybe you like Calvus, maybe Frontosus. Everybody likes Frontosus. The rules with those fish are going to be very similar to the Malawian fish. Now, I'm not talking about water parameters here. There's going to be somebody who's going to say, but they like a higher pH, they like it harder. This video isn't about water parameters, it's about setting up your tank with decor and all that kind of stuff. So we'll get into the water parameters in another video. But setting it up as far as the decor goes, with Frontosas, you want to kind of pay attention to the same type of rules we talked about with peacocks and haps. Now, they are a deep water fish in Lake Tanganyika, so if you give them some caves and things like that, they will find a nice little nest and a little hiding spot, and it's pretty cool. But again, thinking about the whole thing with territory, keep that in mind. Your Tropheus follow the same rules that we do with Mbunas. It's almost like you've got the same thing in Lake Tanganyika as you do in Malawi, so follow the same rules. The larger ones, give them plenty of free roaming, free swimming space, and your smaller ones, your Tropheus, your Brichardi, and little things like that, you want to definitely give them plenty of hiding spots, rocks, nooks, crannies, crevices, things like that to swim around in. So you don't have to do things a whole lot differently for Tanganyikan or Victorian tanks than you do for Malawi. Follow the same rules and you will be fine. And again, we're not talking about water parameters here. We're talking about decorating the tank. Now Victorians, most of your Victorian cichlids are smaller and they're not going to get a whole lot bigger than Mbunas. So let's use those same rules with them giving them the rocks and the hiding spaces and things like that. So, what are the different ways that people like to decorate their African cichlid tanks? Let's get into that. Okay, so now you know what these fish like, now you know what they're looking for, so how do we set it up? Well, it's completely up to you. I could tell you what my favorite things are, your friend could tell you what his favorite things are, it doesn't matter. It all has to do with what you like. There's only about 1 million different ways that you can decorate your aquarium. It's an opportunity for you to express yourself. So, think of it as almost like an art project. But there's one thing that I will promise you. You're gonna decorate your tank, you're gonna love it, and about a month later you're gonna do it all over again. It's part of the deal, it's what we do. We're always moving things around and redecorating. But I wanted to point out a couple of things before we wrap this up, because it's something that if you're new to this, you may not be aware of. And that is that a lot of your natural stones and natural products, period, like driftwood, crushed coral, different types of rocks, those things will have a dramatic effect on your water parameters. So you want to do your research before you make your final decision. Driftwood, for the most part, in an African cichlid tank, is a no-no, because driftwood is going to lower your pH pretty dramatically. And now, if you put a small piece in a 75-gallon tank, it's not going to be that big of a deal. If you remember, I had a big piece in here. It was about 2 feet long. But when you add the sump to this tank, we're talking about 260 gallons. It didn't really have that much of an effect on our water parameters because there's a lot of water in there. But if it was a small tank, it would have made a big deal, a big difference. So keep that in mind. Now your stones, a lot of stones out there will dramatically raise your pH. So when you look around on whether it be YouTube or your friend's house or the pet stores, when you find what you like, definitely do your research before you put it in your tank, because you want to make sure it's going to keep things safe for the fish. You don't want to put something in your tank that's going to harm your fish or drop the pH way down, and then your fish aren't going to be happy and they're not going to be healthy. You want to make sure that you're doing the right thing. I am not a scientist. I am not, someone who knows everything about every type of rock. So feel free to ask your questions about different types of stones and stuff like that. But I'm just going to tell you, I probably won't know. I won't know every type of stone. So now, if you want my personal opinion, you didn't ask for it, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Lisa and I went to a pet store 4 years ago, way up in North Maryland. The store's moved now. I haven't been to the new place, but they had a tank in there that was set up the way we just dreamt about this ever since we saw it. And that is, it was like a 150-gallon tank, black background, white gravel, and a massive amount of Texas holy rock in that aquarium. Have you watched Jay Wilson's videos? If you haven't, go over there and check them out, because that's what I'm talking about. Now, his background is blue, but that Texas holy rock look in an African cichlid tank, I love it. I absolutely love it. I don't think that there's a better look for African cichlids. It's just my opinion. And that's kind of what we're shooting for this tank, but we're going to talk about that in the update for the 240. So I love the Texas holy rock look. It is extremely expensive, but I love that look. And to me, nothing but a big arch of Texas holy rock, that's about as pretty as you get. But anyway, I hope this gives you a little bit better understanding of setting up your African cichlid tank. We're going to do another video talking about the water parameters and how you need to set things up to keep the water safe for your fish. But that's a whole nother topic. So thank you guys so much for watching, and sorry I missed you last week. It's one of those things. What are you going to do? But we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.